It's weird. I don't even remember hitting the go live button. Odd. Welcome everybody. Let's see. Let's just go over real quick our usual kind of announcements, and then we'll take some questions, super chats, etc. Our usual announcement about, let's see how many days we have left. 58 days till the conference. That's less than 9 weeks. We're expected to sell out, so do not wait. Also, I believe probably at the end of the month is when the amazing hotel deal will expire. So if you want to avail of that hotel deal, that discount, don't wait too long. We have other options too. There is a free camping at one of the, but it's dry camping. That means I think the owner might let you use the restrooms during the day, but when obviously he goes to bed, that you can't go into his house. So we call that dry camping. That means there's no hookups or facilities or anything like that. So you need to bring, what you can to basically camp for three nights. But that is a free option. It's about 25-30 minutes from the parish. Other pieces of news. Please write me. I'm looking for at least 2 more people to express interest in our Canvas college epistemology course. You can write me at Father Ananias at patristicfaith.com. What if there isn't a next year? That's what I always say. People are like, oh, I'll go next year. I mean, I'm hoping, but you never know what'll happen. Look at my beanie here. I forgot I'm putting my beanie on today. So, don't say, I mean, I obviously understand if you can't obviously afford to make it this year, but don't let it be the other way where somebody says, well, I'll just go next year, because things happen, there's no guarantees that there's a next year. We don't have that actually set in stone, although we are planning on, trying to do it every year, given that we have the finances. Okay. So I told you about the Canvas epistemology course. The people who have expressed interest want to start that May 1st. So please write me. We do have the other courses that are not they're just pre-recorded lectures for cheaper, obviously, because there's no grading. It's not actually a university. They're university course recordings, but there isn't graded papers, office hours, live interactions. It's not an asynchronous course. It's just recorded. But keep in mind, we do have that if for some reason the actual university course, Canvas course, is too much. Okay, other announcements. I'm trying to think. Tax day. I gotta get those off later today too. I don't know why it takes so long to do this stuff. It's not like I have super complicated taxes, but there's always something I feel like I'm missing. It's like I gotta put more, gotta look something up or pull up some document or something like that. Can you still file for an extension today in case I can't? It's not fun. Thank you for your prayers for my recovery. Still in fairly amount of pain, but it's nothing as bad as the first, obviously, 3 days. Let's see. Let me read super chats if we have any. If I go to dashboard and then recent events on the Streamlabs, Dave the Philippian, God bless you, man. You're awesome. $10. Our regular supporter and contributor. Really looking forward to seeing Dave again at the Orthodox MontaNIKA. Dallas, $20. Thank you, Father. Thank you. Dallas is another one of our regulars. And I want to apologize. Yesterday I might have went a bit rough on one of our mods about the discussion about AI and machines and technology advancing so fast that it's obviously going to be replacing a lot of human work, and it's faster than we can keep up or even predict. I guess that's the scariest part, is that especially in biotech, things that people were saying that like there's no way that technology and AI could ever do this, and then we find out, oh my gosh, it did it. So that's kind of scary, is that we're so sure that AI can't actually do this or replace this work, and then it does it. And that's kind of meant with like, we can't keep up with it. It's what, Heidegger says, it slips out of hand, right? It's unpredictable. It's inevitable. The genie's out of the bag. And we had people saying, well, it would never, that's why you got to, go to trade school, can never replace that. And I was thinking, well, I don't think any of these jobs it'll completely fully replace. I think what it'll do is it'll eliminate most work. Like, I think there'll always be a need for human beings, especially in terms of oversight. It was about construction. That's what I'm saying, is that, and I was looking a little bit of research on that. Like right now, it's obviously not cost effective to build kind of machines and stuff like that. But I mean, you ever wondered why like there's a movement towards like prefab homes and stuff like that could just be produced, mass produced at a cheap. That certainly would be what I'd say that can't actually be done is anything that requires kind of a unique craftsmanship, right? Rather than kind of like prefab homes and stuff like that. Obviously, it seems like, yeah, you would need a carpenter who would, but it depends on the way of society. What if that becomes so expensive and then it becomes so cheap to have AI and machines basically produce prehab, yeah, 3D printed houses and stuff like that, then most construction workers or laborers they're gonna be out. Like I said, there'll always be some like foremans and stuff, people to oversee. I think somebody said, well, what about law? And they would say they could never replace jobs because we'd never put. Maybe that's right, but what it is already doing is replacing lawyers. You only need a couple lawyers now to, you basically can have AI do all the kind of billable hours and stuff like that. A lot of kind of work. There are some dangers in that. Obviously, we found that AI is can get stuff wrong, and it's making up. We found in law that it was making up legal precedents that didn't exist. Anyways, I brought all of that up because it was pushed that you, for a long time, for decades, that the smart, economic move in terms of going to college is to go into STEM and trade and stuff like that, kind of practical degrees, and making fun of like the impracticality of humanities and philosophy and stuff like that. And so, the other thing too is technology gets faster and faster. We're now at the point that it's unpredictable. That's why I said it's moving faster than we can keep up with. So what that means is, back in the day, you would plan your kids' life for 18 years of your kids' life. Like, this is the sort of schools they're gonna go to. Of course, they have their choice, but they'll go to college, and you get these, especially in terms of like law, medicine, or trade school or something like that. You learn a trade that, there was a lot more assurance with that, and so people planned, 20 years out. It's moving so fast, and the world's changing so much. This third industrial revolution, the whole economic structure, how we live and eat and interact, how medicine and law will work, is all gonna be entirely different, and in some sense unpredictable. So it doesn't make sense anymore that it's like you plan your life out going to college to get these kind of practical STEM degrees, or now that's become risky. It's like they're the most easily replaced, and so it's starting to make what was seen valuable as humanities that seem more impractical, but dealt specifically with the uniqueness of those subjects, the uniqueness of the human being, now actually look to be more valuable than the trades and the STEMs and the kind of practical. That's what I was bringing up. Obviously, we had somebody in here that was a carpenter and said that'll never happen. I'll never. And it's like, well, you got to think too that you've got a dog in the fight. So it's going to make you biased towards. So the things that I think are kind of more creative, like creative craftsmanship and stuff like that, music, art, those will be harder to obviously replace, and they'll never completely. Now, people brought up, well, with AIs actually can produce music and art. But what I think is going to happen, there'll always be a small segment of society, is that even it can replicate and fool you into thinking that it's the same, music and stuff, because they do have AI music that's actually shockingly good, and you can't tell. I think people always want that kind of live experience, right? Even if they're fooled, they'll want to know that, was this produced by a human being? I want to actually see a human being playing music before me, even if the music and the art is, in terms of production value, equivalent. So I think that's a good thing. Also, I think that would probably apply with the humanities, because people were saying, do you think that it'll ever get good enough to replace philosophy? I think somebody had asked that question. It might. I'm always kind of shocked. I mean, it was pretty crude when you interacted with Chat GPT and philosophical questions. but it's getting better. It can fool you. Like, it gets good enough that it would sufficiently produce as far as a product that would be sufficient to. But again, I think that there's going to be a segment of society that doesn't care about that. They'll be like, I want to see the professor. Now, that's not required in STEM because there's nothing about essentially connected to the humanities, what's uniquely human with, since they're kind of more practical, there's not going to necessarily be a desire that, yeah, I need to have actually talk to a live person and be. So I think the humanities will still be valuable because people will want, even if it could produce the same level product content, that I think people will still want. Now, some people won't. They'll be perfectly fine with AI philosophy, AI history, humanities, all the poetry. But there will always be that segment of society that's like, I want to see the person. I want the human experience, the face-to-face experience. That's interesting, whether it can replace pedagogy. Well, think about this. We professors are taught pedagogy, like tips, like kind of algorithmically. Like, you take courses, so it might be, especially too, I was worrying about the fact that there's nothing we can do about, I teach online too, but the fact that a lot of colleges moved online, especially after COVID, that you could actually teach without a live interaction, without live classes, it could it could be replaced. Dude, these things drive me crazy. I mean, how stupid. This is really sad. These things, your vehicle has been unpaid toll past due, right? And it's either from another, and it's like a screenshot of, so it's just so stupid. My report is junk. Now, why would I have a toll from another state or another country? Report is junk. Must be a numbers game. Some people must fall for those. All right, let's go to... That's what said. People who desire to have in-person experience with, obviously can't replace those kind of... Abject Fool donates $10. Internet open summation of human knowledge to people, but I suppose AI will allow them to use it efficiently. Well, here's the problem too. The internet really didn't open up for knowledge. It gave more access to data. That's... Society did not become more knowledgeable. In fact, less. Because in one sense, it's now harder to get knowledge, to get it right, when there's more data and false things to actually work through. And then the whole thing about knowledge and AI is interesting too. It almost kind of reminds me of, in a rudimentary sense, Wikipedia. Now, professors and academics would never allow Wikipedia to be cited because it's not a reliable source. But most academics would never never use it. So it was kind of used to kind of guide people, even though it's unreliable. In terms of time efficiency, it can kind of point you, can give you a kind of a rough idea of what's going on, even if the details of the information are false or corrupted. It can point you in the right direction to look up other articles. So what AI is doing is basically a kind of more efficient way, even though it's not entirely reliable. My wife just was interacting with AI and experienced one of those issues too, but finding out, yes, I hear you, that something was just false, and maybe you've had that experience too. Um, but it's still it still gets stuff right. So this is kind of weird, and maybe human to human experience, and even experts is like that too. I can't just go to any academic and think that they're infallible and give me the right information all the time. They get stuff wrong. Yet we still use that. Like, so perhaps there's an analogy with AI. Like, it does get stuff wrong, um, but it also seems to be quite efficient. Like, it gets stuff right, especially with being able to operate as kind of more advanced kind of search engine and stuff like that, and find. So that's all very interesting. But overall, like, is it going to decrease human knowledge? Well, if it's anything just like what the internet phenomenon did, probably. Like, sounds like you're talking from a dog in the fight position too. Well, that's why I qualified. I think a lot of teaching will be replaced the same way as carpentry. So I'm not being biased in that. I'm actually admitting um, that I said the only thing in carpentry is somebody who wants a uniquely human designed, right, house or something. Somebody who's an artist or a musician who wants it uniquely, even if it was produced the same product, those will be around. And likewise with philosophy and humanities, right? So I don't think it's biased to say that. I think that I think that's a pretty fair assessment of those things that want to be uniquely. What my argument is, can it produce the same quality of content? And all of those, I think, yes. And that will eliminate a lot of work. A lot of work. But obviously, there's an essential difference between production and things that are less practical, that seem to be uniquely human. And I think that's something um, that's essential to this conversation. Jay is not a flat earther. I am not a flat earther. Um, that's a total psyop created by. It's like a false flag. Um, those. It's not how it originated. I can't remember the guy's name. That created the Flat Earth Society. But it was co-opted by intelligence agencies and stuff like that to discredit like real conspiracy facts and theories by making people look wacko. And this happens all the time. Um, I've made that's a pet peeve. I don't know why certain stuff bothers me, but that flat earthers have always irritated me. I mean, there's a lot of things that are wrong that don't irritate me, and I've never figured out why. Like, obviously some stuff's obvious. There's other stuff that I'm like, I don't know what it's in me about me that um that certain things that are wrong, like, irritate me, really bother me. Like, geocentrism I'm more open to. Like, I would love to prove that, actually. I definitely like that idea. But I could go over real quick. It's like 20 kind of just general points. My problems with flat Earth. It's not scientific in its thinking. So I have a double major and minor in math and science from undergrad, from when I got my BA in liberal arts. I've done plenty of science. I did my PhD in philosophy of science. I know enough to be able to identify, like, even if somebody was right in their answers accidentally, somebody that's like just, it's not. And I'm skeptical of science too. Trust me, in scientism, I've written plenty about the corruption of science and scientism and things like that. But I'm certainly qualified as a philosopher of science to be able to assess and be like, the person is an amateur, has no kind of just mindset, is thinking incorrectly in terms of scientific thinking. That's number one. There are current scientists, although they're obviously unpopular, who support young Earth, creationism, geocentrism even. I've yet to actually see, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's one out there, I don't know, an actual somebody qualified who has degrees in science that supports flat Earth. 3, it relies on naive thinking, seeing as believing. You never see the curvature. So what you see is that it's flat, therefore it must be flat. The burden of proof's on you, which is just interesting too, because one of the things that you notice in the history of science is the distinction between it's what Wilfrid Sellers calls the manifest image versus the scientific image. And this is a theme that goes all throughout philosophy, the way the world appears versus the way that it is. And appearances, I mean, if you think about all the things about science, what the scientific models and descriptions that are discovered and put forth are often, it's what Sellers calls a clash of images, is often not like the way that it looks at all. There's the surface, right? So I mean, think about the rubber pen. Your senses and the naive way of like the kind of manifest image of the way it looks are obviously not reliable. And so you develop kind of metaphysics and also scientific techniques to describe the way the world really is, that's beyond, below the appearances, the kind of structures of reality. 4, it creates ad hoc modifications and non-falsifiable hypotheses. 5, it commits the fallacy from ignorance, but we haven't seen. 6, Eratosthenes' proof refutes flat Earth. 8, the inability to explain Foucault's pendulum. 9, the inability to provide a better theory than Copernicus. So even if it were true, we move to theories that are considered better scientific theories, which they could be wrong, but like kind of best explanations in terms of the kind of rules of science. And none of them have been able to replace provide a better theory than Copernicus, Kepler, Tycho Brahe, even if those theories aren't true. 10, the inability to explain the seasons. 11, different stars are visible from different latitudes. 12, you cannot see Kawakini from the peak of Mauna Loa precisely because of the predictions of the globe theory. So there's plenty of predictions within globe theory that match actually that. on the curvature of the Earth. 13, if you conduct the celestial poles observations at different latitudes, you'll find that the Earth is a globe at the center of the celestial sphere. The conclusion drawn by ancient astronomers themselves many centuries ago. The stationary Polaris argument from the poles is what it's known as. 14, P and S waves seismographic studies prove the globe Earth theory. Flat Earth has to posit ad hoc modifications and incorrect planetary, solar, and star sizes, if you've ever seen their models, and distances. 16, Flat Earth relies on incoherent, inaccurate notions of light and optics to explain changes in the day versus evening. 17, Flat Earth creates unrealistic, inaccurate, not to scale models on a computer to salvage their ad hoc modifications. 19, Flat Earth resurgence in popularity comes from dubious sources. This should be a big red flag for you. Who's pushing all this stuff? Evangelicals and Hebrew roots. That already makes, like, if I didn't even mention all the other, I'm immediately dubious anything coming from those groups. 20, Flat Earth experiments to prove that the Earth is flat and not curved by lining up a laser through two holes at the same elevation separated by great distance was falsified, proving Flat Earth false. So those are just 20 easy kind of points. I could go further into that. Yeah, Nuna, it is a matter of perspective. In one sense, like if you move your perspective, that's one of the difficult things, is that we can never actually get out of and have a kind of objective God's eye point of view. The hardest problem for me that I haven't been able to overcome, though, is the Earth's movement spinning on its axis throughout the year. That it has a movement of its own that would require so in order for that to be falsified and that stationary and the rest are moving around, that I'd have to refute Foucault's pendulum, and I haven't been able to do that. I'd love to. I'm not smart enough to. Maybe one day. Let's see what other questions you guys have. Feeling the Wolf. No, wait. Yeah, Feeling the Wolf donates £2. Thank you so much. Yeah, Dale, so I think what you'll see, though, is that I don't know when, like, 90% of the jobs will be replaced. Just like I said, I always think whatever job, there's always going to be some, as terms of, like, supervision, oversight, foremans, and architects, and some level of that. And I don't know when, like, no, that's the problem, is nobody can predict how fast that will go. But we are moving to more module, like, so I don't know if that'll, I think there'll always be like a desire among some people to not have those, if they have the money to be able to produce, because that'll obviously become a lot more expensive. But yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, parishioners are so kind to send me fishing pictures. Machinists will never be replaced by machines. That's a good one. I like that. The sarcasm. I like sarcasm. Best argument against the idea of PSA. PSA is predicated upon nominalism, and St. Paul, that nominalism did not exist in antiquity. Doesn't come about until William of Ockham or something like that. So that's the easiest. Number two, that notion of Well, I'd say too, the liturgies, the prayers in the liturgies refutes it. The notion of the very what the liturgy is doing. Number three, that it's anti-Trinitarian. It splits up the Trinity because the punishment is separation from God. And you can use even further, like harder language, even though some Protestants today will move away from that damnation. But it's certainly separate. How could Christ be punished? Right, without separating himself from God. Number three, then, if that's not it, it's an Nestorianism. What's actually being punished? What's actually being offered? The human nature or the divine nature? If the divine, then you have a separation of the divine from the divine, which doesn't make any sense. If it's the human nature, well, human nature is finite and can't actually atone for an infinite offense. Like, it's really pretty easy. But I think the way to just shut it down is that, again, it's all predicated on nominalism, and St. Paul was an anomalist. There's no nominalism until the medieval ages. I don't know about space. I don't think we can go into it. I don't think we go into what's actually caused outer space, but I mean, it seems pretty clear. You don't have to depend on what people tell you. You look at it like if you have a telescope, like obviously you can get an idea that they're like space is pretty big. There's actually something called outer space, and you can just determine that by yourself by the proportions of the magnification in terms of distance and work at that equation from your own telescope. So like, it doesn't make any sense. I never understood what that means. Like, space is fake and gray. It's like, obviously it's not like you can use a telescope and see and calculate the distances. I don't know how far it goes or something like that, but I don't get why people think it's actually fake. No, it's not a fallacy. Um, Push B or sus. You know why? Because we do establish in courts of law um, witness testimony, expert testimony, and stuff like that. And what's one of the things that they go into? The trustworthiness of the person, uh, and whether they should be actually trusted on that. So, like, we do it all the time. That now nobody's saying because they're dubious and untrustworthy that it's logically impossible for them to say is true. No, I don't think I'd say that, but like, obviously, it's just like the question isn't about whether what they're saying is logically necessarily true or not, but whether is the person trustworthy, and should I trust that person to get information? So that's definitely not a fallacy. We do it all the time. Like, if you had a friend that constantly lied, I mean, lied a lot, was a pathological liar, they could tell you something true. But for you to say, like, I don't trust them and I'm suspicious, they're dubious, there's nothing fallacious about it. Like, that's an accurate description. That actually follows. Think about how that actually logically follows. A suspicious person is suspicious, by definition. I think you should take a trip down to MontaNIKA. Yeah, it's going to be the best one yet. Yeah, the fallacy, the ad hominem is because they're such and such a person, it's logically impossible what they're saying is true. I've never said that. And even a court of law, you would just say like, conclude like we're not going to get our information from that. Those groups of people, or it's logically justified to be dubious of. Oh no, I lost the. And the other thing too is even if I was wrong about one of those points, you'd have to refute every one of them is sufficient to, except for maybe the dubious character one, to refute flat Earth. So you'd have to answer all 19 of those, which is like nobody's going to be able to do that. Well, Bob, see, I'm just addressing there are people that make. So, although the general flat Earth argument may not depend on that, um, those who do make that argument can be eliminated. That's like, well, you can't actually use that as an argument. Yeah, somebody said to be about intuition too. I always start with intuition in philosophy and even in spiritual matters, and which I would say in terms of Dr. Ian McGilchrist is your right brain. I hand it over to the left brain. I get the same intuition with flat Earth. I'm like, it's sus and wrong. That I have about every other philosophy or religion before I went over into the actual proofs that and maybe that's what irritates me too, is that it's like I intuitively know that it's wrong. And I start there. Now of course it's possible and it's has happened, although you get better at it, especially if you have a gift for it too, that you misinterpreted something that was intuitive that wasn't actually intuitive knowledge. That's possible. But as far as motivation, to like look into and to be a type of evidence that would justify the doubt, at least, is intuitively know it's wrong. like it's like there's almost something even demonic. I don't know how to explain this, demonic about it. Like the motivating, and I haven't really kind of thought about that, like why that's the case, but it's the same kind of energy that I get with a lot of kind of theory. Like there's some type of, like, whether it's PSA, or even a place or a person, there's a demonic kind of energy behind. In fact, we had this experience, and I'm actually pretty good at that, intuiting, and I can describe. I've talked to Father Turbo about this before too. I've been around people and places that, and sometimes I didn't. It started as kind of an intuitive feeling, and it's not intuition is not a feeling, but it's, and it has an analogous language of description of almost presenting itself like a feeling. But if I use it, it's a type of quality, right? Something feels off, like uncanniness. It's like something's not right, and you can't intellectually really figure out what's going on. And there's a heaviness. It's almost like the air is heavy. And Orthodox, we use that kind of like oppression, right? So when we first moved up here, we were eating at a steakhouse, and this guy was like, cool bartender, and he was telling us about Helena and stuff, and he was like, oh, my favorite bar is Jester's. You haven't been to Jester's, go to Jester's. So one day my wife and I went to Jester's, and I did not like it. And it was like, we have plenty of dive bars and stuff in Montana that I have no problem with. There was something about this that I felt uncomfortable, like something wasn't right, and a heaviness. It was that same. I didn't immediately identify, other than both my wife and I were like, I don't like this place, let's leave. Now, maybe 4 months ago, that there was this crazy thing that happened there, like somebody was having like a psychological break or something, like, and assaulted people in the bar. They were trying to kick him out. He had a knife and locked himself in the bathroom of Jester's. And the police came, and then he tried to assault the police and stab him with the knife, and he was shot and killed in front of the bar like 4 months ago. And so I saw this like in the Facebook, like people talking about, and then somebody said something that I was like, bingo. God, that explains. They said, don't go to that bar unless you like the occult. There's occultic activity. And I was like, there it is. I knew it. Like, that's the feeling. Anyways, I can't tell you how many experiences I've had where I initially didn't identify it, only later to find out that I'm like, there was some type of occultic activity. This person was involved in the occult or something like that. And I had the same intuition with like religions, philosophies, not at the same kind of degree, right? Because you're not there in a place or something like that. But I'm like, there's something demonic about Mormonism. Like, it's Jehovah's Witness. Definitely Jehovah's Witnesses. And keep in mind, too, I don't have to explain. Somebody's asking, the basic bodies of water are flat. All of that, by the way, is scientifically proved, like, and explainable. But notice, I don't actually have to explain every single thing that can't be explained. The burden of proofs on the flat earther, actually, once I have the arguments that would refute it, they have to refute it. So you can't actually move and say, well, how do you explain this? And of course, in science, there's always going to be anomalies, things that you can't actually explain. So that's not. But yeah, look at like. It has to do with the size, pressure and volume and stuff like that. You can mathematically calculate, and it will always, it will be flat. Now, of course, from your perspective, from a larger perspective, right? If you're out into space, does the water look flat to you? So it depends on what you mean. But if you're asking, like, I mean, it's just such a great distance. There's no way that you would see it actually curve. What you're going to get is the visual of it looking flat, right? And then the curvature, the way that you're going to perceive actually curved water is not on the water, but the things coming down from the. So it's actually explainable, but I just wanted to make that Also, what's weird too, I can make an ancient argument. A disc or something flat is an imperfect figure, and so and maybe that's what's kind of demonic behind the flat Earth. It's Gnostic. Um, why would God, unless you're saying like the Earth used to be a globe, which is like a sphere is a perfect figure, um, in terms of aesthetics and beauty and stuff like that, and proportion. Uh, Unless you say like, well, it turned flat after the fall or something like that, then you have a very Gnostic idea of demiurge that creates imperfectly. Um, so I like that. And the ancients used arguments from perfection and asceticism and stuff like that, not to prove the, but like in a lot of other things, terms of music and stuff like that. So I think that's why I think there's some sort of demonic energy between flat Earth, is that it seems Gnostic to me, that it's God is an imperfect creator. He like the ascetics and the like he doesn't create perfect figures and stuff like that. But notice that's different than geocentric. Like I think I tend to believe in geocentric. I just haven't been able to, by the rigors required, been able to prove that. But I don't see how the moon landing is connected to this issue, other than um, that would be an addition if it happened, which I don't believe. At least at the first one, that would be additional evidence. Um, but again, the ancients didn't believe this stuff. Like that's what I mean, is that it's it doesn't mean it's necessarily false, but it's dubious the origins of where this comes from. The fact that we were mathematically, even Aristotle had proofs for. Um, it's just weird on that. Yeah, I brought that up. Unless you want to argue, well, the Earth flattened after, which I guess is possible, but it's like it just seems ad hoc. That's like, well, I just add this thing in here because it saves my position. All right, let's see if we have any other. I gotta go. Oh my goodness. Send us a couple more super chats. I've got to do logical truth tables of longer propositions. This is getting a little bit more difficult. I'm wondering too, two things. I think next week I might do our famous debate reviews. I'm wondering if I should stream that with the class. The only thing is they might feel I kind of want to stop and talk to them about. Oh yeah, my wife brought up a good point. They may want anonymity because they'll be in the. Is that right? If I stream, oh, I'm gonna have to think about that. Yeah, this leg thing is it's frustrating. God help me, it's humbling. But I'm definitely skeptical of I don't think we went to the moon. Now, am I skeptical? Can we send rockets or something outside of the probably outside into actual outer space? Um, I don't think you could send living beings out there because of the Van Allen radiation belt. Um, but I mean, I don't see anything problematic about. My, yeah, given what I know about like technology, and keep this in mind too. Technology that you find out about, we were able to do like 30 years ago. The one that blows me away is SR-71. Like when the late 80s that came out, that thing was like made, and they made it sound like they just came out with it like in the 70s. I was like, what? I found that, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, so they'd had this thing for, and I always like watching the people Jones has on stuff that he bring, like the sort of kind of technology, like warfare technology and stuff that we had, like a blow your mother, like wow, yeah. But then, yeah, as far as the technology of like how we figured out to get humans beyond the Van Allen radiation, oh, we lost it. You see, like that one was a big wake up call for me. I'm like, and we start thinking about it, like you send somebody through in tinfoil, Reynolds tinfoil wrap, into outer space through the Van Allen radiation belt, and they were to come back, and then you made in the 60s, a live phone call to the White House. Oh, then we lost the technology. Like, it's just you start going through the details, and you're just like, there ain't no way. There ain't no way that. I know. That's what brought this all up is Whammon went into space yesterday. Giant step for feminism. Katy Perry. What in the world is wrong with the world? Yeah, and also look into the geopolitics too. That explains a lot of that kind of stuff. Um, I actually do believe in the ether. Weird scientific takes that are no longer accepted that I believe it. That would be interesting. We didn't go to the moon. Um, the Earth is the center of the universe. Uh, ether does exist. Give me some other ones that I might. I wouldn't go for phlogiston theory though. That was a really weird. It's another substance. It's more rare than air. Um, so, but you have to kind of understand the history of philosophy, especially in antiquity. And it makes sense too that there's a famous phrase: "Nature abhors a vacuum." There's no such thing as empty space because there can't be things can't move through empty space. Motion requires some level of contact or a medium or something like that. And the same with light. In order to like see things, there must be a medium by which the thing's seen through light. Aristotle talked about this through a medium, and so this is why it was so problematic for Newton to posit, in terms of his theory of gravity, bodies acting on themselves from a distance. Like, and he was accused of introducing occultic properties, right? Is a sense of like hidden, non-scientific, right? Weird occult. Like if I started going na 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 ma 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 and moving objects, like you'd be like, ah, wow, science. Then you'd be like, that's occultic stuff, right? And so when he introduced that theory, because motion was in terms of contact, like this thing moves this thing by contact, or there's a medium by which this can move, right? For example, if I push my hand through a pool of water, I can move that. But it didn't make any sense to say, like, how could I move no, 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 through a distance or something like that. So because of that, I mean, that's the kind of basic description of nature abhors a vacuum. It's like metaphysically and philosophically impossible, is what the ancients thought. And so they posited that there was a substance that was more rarefied than air. And obviously, you see the atmosphere, right? So this is the air. But as you go upwards, it becomes more and more rarefied, so that they believe that the planets move. Like what was in space wasn't actual empty space, but the planets moved from ether. And then it was the Michael Morley experiment where they were trying to prove this, and through the negative results, concluded that there's no ether, and then that sets up actually for Einstein, and like it's a kind of interesting history. But I actually like the idea of ether. I think it actually exists. Quantum ether. And we don't mean ether like the actual gas that like his foot. Space whammon. Space whammon wine mommies travel to space for. Also, like other things I don't believe, that Stephen Hawking's was an actual genius physicist. I mean, we all just fell. What does my buddy Chase say? He's basically the Chewbacca for boomers. Like just taught like, and you think he's intelligent or something. It's just a bunch of scientists writing out like audio scripts that speak through, but like there's like literally no brain activity going on with this guy, and we all fell for it. The more outrageous the claim is, the more somebody's capable of falling for it. Helen Keller ain't buying it, dude. Deaf, dumb, blind girl that champions feminism, propped up is yeah, we go through a whole bunch. There's some other ones too that probably get me in trouble for talking about, but yeah, they're always funny conversations. She had a she had a British accent even though she couldn't speak. It was like the dead giveaway. It's really good. Should have been your warning sign that you can't have an accent if you can't speak. But she wrote with an accent, you see. If she could, it would have sounded British. Alright. Logic class about to begin, so I'm going to cut you guys off. I'm sorry. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for the super chats. Keep me in your prayers. And my wife, who has to take care of this invalid now, everything, it's terrible. And good Holy Tuesday to all of you. A good Holy Week. Until next time, God bless you guys and keep you. And may His grace shine upon you. Amen.